Hello and welcome back to another in-depth weather video. If you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another in-depth weather video. Today, we're going to be talking about the excessive rainfall, thunderstorm, fire weather, and tropics risks, as well as going over the models. Today, I'm starting on the National Weather Service page. We still have those heat advisories along the East Coast and in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. We also have red flag warnings in Oregon, Idaho, Nevada, and California. We have excessive heat watches in California, Nevada, and Arizona, as well as flash flood related watches, warnings, and advisories in multiple states. All these areas in dark green or this lime green here. So let's move on to the radar, and you'll see what I'm talking about with the flash flood risks. We can see that this band of rain from New Mexico all the way up into the Northeast is going to be continuing to push through the United States across the next day or two, and that will bring severe thunderstorms as well as heavy rainfall, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. We also have a few other showers in the west and some tropical type of moisture in Florida. Now let's move on to the excessive rainfall outlook. So here's the excessive rainfall outlook. We have marginal risks from Montana to New Jersey. We also have slight risks in Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, and Oklahoma. We also have another area of marginal risk from Texas to Florida. Anywhere in this dark green, you have a 5 to 10% chance of exceeding flash flood guidance. If you're in yellow, 10 to 20% of the same thing. Now let's move on to the severe thunderstorm outlook. So we do have marginal risks today in areas from Maine to Virginia, including Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, Springfield, Boston, Portland, and I think that's Houghton, but it's kind of cut off here. Everywhere else that is in a light green color, that is the general thunderstorm category. That means there's no good risk for severe weather, but it is still possible. It's just not likely. So let's go through less than 2% chance of tornadoes today. We have 5% chance of excessive winds, excessive of 58 miles an hour along those marginal risk areas, and hail we have less than 5% chance. Now let's move on to the fire weather outlook. So we do have some scattered dry and isolated dry areas, as well as an elevated risk. So the elevated risk is in Washington and Oregon. The scattered dry is in Oregon, and the isolated dry is in areas from Montana to Utah to California and Oregon. So let's move on to the tropics so we can go over that real quick, and then we'll move on to the models. So we still have Invest 92L. It has, let's actually pull this up here. So shower activity associated with a low pressure area located about 850 miles east of the Windward Islands has again become a little better organized. However, the low circulation remains broad without a well-defined center of circulation. Environmental conditions are expected to become somewhat more conducive for development, and a tropical depression or tropical storm is likely to form during the next couple of days while the system moves west-northwestward at 15 to 20 miles an hour and approaches the Leeward Islands. Regardless of development, locally heavy rains and gusty winds are likely across portions of the Leeward Islands on Wednesday and will spread westward to the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico Wednesday night and Thursday. interest on these islands should continue to monitor the progress of this storm. The system and tropical storm watches or warnings could be required for portions of the area on Tuesday. So, formation chance within the next 2 days is 70% and 5 days 80%. So those percentages have dropped a little bit. Eastern Pacific, there's nothing. So the Central Pacific, we are still watching Douglas. It has now passed the Hawaiian Islands, and we can see here in the wind history that we did not see any hurricane force wind swaths from Douglas on the islands. Possible gusts, but mostly just tropical storm force winds. So this storm went a little bit to the north of the Hawaiian Islands, which is a good thing. Now, if we look at wind speed probabilities, we can tell that this is going to be diminishing over the next few days and should become a tropical depression on Thursday. But there's still some islands in here. Tropical storm warnings and watches have been issued, and once we get through to this point on Wednesday, we should be in the clear for the island chains out in the Pacific Ocean. Now let's move on to the models. So here's a NAM 3 kilometer model. We're going to be watching this system right here as we kind of start to see a little bit of thunderstorm activity here in the northeast into Tuesday night into Wednesday. But then we have this next system that starts to boil up here, and you start to get more moisture in this southern area, and we're looking at this area in particular to be getting very heavy rainfall over the next week or two. So let's move on to the temperatures, and let's actually look at today's temperatures, where we do have those excessive heat areas to keep in mind. So triple digits in Washington, triple digits in California, high triple digits in the desert where those excessive heat watches are, and then in the northeast we still have those heat advisories, but the temperatures will be toning down a little bit throughout the day today as those thunderstorms roll through. But generally for the northeast, 70s to 90s, high 70s to low 90s in areas. The southeast, 80s and 90s depending on where you are. If you're ahead of that front, you're probably going to be having some higher temperatures than if you're behind the front. In the Great Lakes region, 70s and 80s, and you guys are pretty much behind the front now, so it should be pretty consistently at those 70s and 80s. The north central region, we could see up to the 90s in areas of the Dakotas and Nebraska, as well as into Montana, east of the Rockies. And in the south central area, we could see some 80s and 90s, possibly some triple digits in Texas. Now, in the mountains and the west, you could see anywhere from the 50s to the triple digits, depending on one, elevation, and two, where you are. If you're in California in the desert, you're going to be seeing high triple digits. If you are in mostly everywhere else, it's looking like the 90s is the most consistent number on this map, but you could see areas like Seattle and Portland in the 70s and 80s. Again, this is just a general representation. This, such as right here in the Dallas area, we could see the high temperatures not be at this time. This is about 6 o'clock Eastern, so you could see some differing in temperatures depending on location based on storms and cloud cover, but this is just a general representation. Now, I do want to check in with the GFS. I'm going to actually go to this model run here, and let's go to this. I just want to check in again with 92L, see what's happening there. So here it is. We're going to watch it come north of the islands, and then through the Bahamas now. The GFS is now showing it going through the Bahamas, and kind of disintegrating there. So we're seeing the GFS kind of come back to a little bit of realism. It is showing that this storm will probably become a tropical storm, not a hurricane, and will not be impacting the U.S. as thought. So that is good news, but it could always happen, and we gotta wait. If it were to impact the U.S., it's early August, so looking into like mid next week, possibly some of that tropical moisture could be impacting areas like Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. So we'll just have to wait and see. But that is all I have for today. I hope you all have a great Tuesday, and I'll see you again tomorrow.